A month before he died, Kyle Busch went on national radio and publicly named Joey Logano as someone he couldn't stand. A few weeks later, the two of them were on a playground at Talladega, shooting hoops with their kids and talking trash, and neither one of them could actually play basketball. That's Kyle Busch. That is the whole story right there, and Joey Logano just told it in a way that is going to stay with NASCAR fans for a very long time. During a press conference Saturday before the Coca-Cola 600, Joey Logano spoke publicly about his relationship with Kyle Busch, and the picture he painted was more layered than the rivalry the sport had come to know on the track. Just a month ago, Busch appeared on a podcast and named Logano among the peers he had no interest in. Logano knew about it. His response was to walk straight up to Busch at Talladega, call him out to his face, and then spend the afternoon playing basketball with him and their kids in the driver-owner lot. Michael McDowell was there for it. He described it as one of the lasting images he'll carry. Busch playing with the kids, talking trash to Logano the entire time in a setting that had nothing to do with racing. Chase Briscoe added his own version of the same story, a man who could flip a switch between competitor and human being with such precision that he had a name for it. The competitor was Rowdy. Everything else was just Kyle. The Busch-Logano rivalry was real. It wasn't manufactured drama for broadcast. It was two intensely competitive drivers who genuinely clashed on the racetrack and let those feelings spill into the public sphere repeatedly over nearly 2 decades. The tension had layers, competitive grievances, on-track incidents, words said in the heat of the moment that didn't get walked back easily. But what's emerging now, in the days since Busch's death, is a fuller portrait. And that portrait keeps revealing the same thing. The rivalry and the relationship existed simultaneously. They were not in conflict with each other. Busch could publicly say he didn't like Logano and then genuinely enjoy an afternoon with him and their children. And both things were true at the same time. That's a more sophisticated emotional reality than NASCAR's rivalries usually get credit for. Most competitive narratives in sport are flattened into simple binaries. He hates him. They can't stand each other. They'll never get along. What Logano described on Saturday doesn't fit that frame. It's messier and more human than that. The timing of the Talladega moment also matters. Just weeks before Busch died, these two men were in a completely unguarded setting. No cameras, no crew, no competitive pressure, and what happened was a trash-talking basketball game with their kids. Logano's line about being glad no cameras caught it because neither of them could play is exactly the kind of detail that makes a memory feel real rather than constructed. That's the last significant memory Joey Logano has of Kyle Busch, a playground, bad basketball, and both of them laughing about a podcast. What these stories collectively reveal is something worth examining carefully because it reframes how we understand Busch's competitive identity. Chase Briscoe's account is the most surgical one. He describes standing backstage with Busch during a media appearance, watching him be completely relaxed, open, and normal, and then witnessing him walk onto a stage and immediately become something else. Harder, sharper, the version of himself that NASCAR had been consuming for 20 years. And then, the moment they walked off, he was back. Busch had a name for that version, Rowdy, a constructed persona, a character he could put on and take off with the same deliberateness an actor uses to step into a role. The key word Briscoe used was seamless. There was no visible transition, no warm-up period. He was one thing and then he was the other, and it looked effortless. That level of psychological control is extraordinarily rare, and it explains a lot about how Busch sustained elite-level performance for as long as he did. Danica Patrick talked earlier this week about the altered state that separated the best drivers from everyone else, that ability to access a competitive gear that most people can't reach consistently. What Briscoe's story suggests is that Busch didn't just access it on the track. He could summon it on demand, anywhere, for any audience, and then step back out of it when the moment was over. Rowdy was a tool, and Kyle was the one holding it. That distinction matters for how we evaluate his legacy too. The polarizing, combative, take-no-prisoners reputation that divided the NASCAR fan base for years. That was a performance layered on top of a person who was apparently quite different in private. Not fake, exactly. More like a highly disciplined version of a real competitive instinct, amplified and projected outward for maximum effect. Logano's comment about what their relationship might have become once both of them were done racing is the line that will sit with people the longest. He was suggesting that the rivalry had a natural endpoint that would have softened further, that the full friendship was out there waiting somewhere past the finish line. They just didn't get there. That's the part nobody gets to know now. The reaction to these stories has been one of recognition rather than surprise, and that distinction matters. Most NASCAR fans who follow Busch closely suspected there was more to him than the persona. The talent was too real, the longevity too sustained, the private moments that occasionally leaked out too warm to reconcile with a person who was purely what he appeared to be on television. These stories from Logano, McDowell, and Briscoe confirm what a lot of people already sensed. What's landing hardest is the basketball scene at Talladega. It's specific, it's unguarded, it involves children playing together while their fathers talk trash and laugh. It has nothing to do with racing and everything to do with who these people actually are when the sport releases its grip on them for an afternoon. The Rowdy reveal, Busch naming his own competitive alter ego, is the clip that's going everywhere. It's funny, it's self-aware, and it's the kind of thing that collapses the distance between the legend and a regular person in about 4 seconds. These stories become a central part of how Kyle Busch's legacy is framed going forward. Not just the wins and the championships, but the full human being behind the number. The Rowdy persona becomes understood as a deliberate, sophisticated, competitive tool rather than a character flaw. Busch gets the Hall of Fame induction he deserves, and the eulogies written about him in the years ahead reflect the complexity that his fellow drivers are articulating right now. The rivalry with Logano gets remembered as exactly what it was, real, but never the whole picture. The nuance gets lost. The complete joke from the podcast, Busch saying he couldn't stand Logano, gets replayed in highlight reels without the Talladega basketball game attached to it. The competitive persona outlasts the private person in the public memory, and a generation of casual fans who didn't follow him closely are left with a one-dimensional impression of someone who is clearly far more than that. The fuller story exists, it's being told right now, but whether it sticks depends on who's listening. Kyle Busch spent 20 years making sure you knew who Rowdy was. The guys you raced beside him are spending this week making sure you know who Kyle was. Those are two different people who lived in the same body, and the fact that both of them existed fully and simultaneously is what makes this loss so hard to process. You can replace a driver, you cannot replace a person who operated on that many levels at once. Here's what I want from you in the comments. Did these stories change how you see Kyle Busch, or did they just confirm what you already believed? Because I think the answer to that question says something real about how well this sport communicated who he actually was. Subscribe if you want to be here for the rest of the Charlotte coverage. We're still in the middle of this story.